Not even God is going to stop me doing what I'm going to do to you. I know where your parents live, and I know you have a dog. I'm going to stab it. That's a threat that the police allege was made by a notorious bikie who, for legal reasons we can't name, so we're just going to call him Tony K. Police allege he made this threat over the phone to plumber Stephen Toy back in March of 2009. What was alleged by police to have happened in the weeks after this threat was made is absolutely, for lack of better words, insane. If you follow the people, the money, and the companies that were all connected to Tony K and this threat, and you follow them for years down the line, what you'll find is a web of disturbing connections to some of the most senior political and senior business figures in Australia. This is a story about the kings of Sydney's property development industry, an attempt to make sense of their coronation. The following information has been gleaned from court documents and police statements Friendly Geordies has viewed, namely from police statements of Stephen Toy, a self-employed plumber from Western Sydney. We'll begin in 2009 when Stephen Toy, then aged 27, alleges he was friends with a man by the name of Andy Nahas. Andy Nahas at the time was a 20-year-old man from Marylands. His family had been in the property development business for quite some time, running Nahas Constructions. Stephen claims that he knows Andy from growing up around the Guildford and Marylands area, and that he also went to school with one of Andy's older brothers, either Joe or Fadi Nahas. Joe, who also goes by the name of Yusuf, was director of Nahas Constructions at the time. We'll get to that company soon. Anyway, the police statements given by Stephen Toy detail this strange story wherein Andy is owed money, around $4,500, by some man who was unidentified in the first statement, but in the second is referred only to as Andrew. The lack of $4,500 forces Andy to borrow $1,000 from a different unnamed man. Stephen, being the good friend he is, realises his mate knows Andrew's older brother, so he approaches that mate to see if he can get him to convince Andrew to give Andy back the $4,500 that Andy lent. You following? Yeah, look, it's an extremely convoluted chain of debts that doesn't really make that much sense. And in all honesty, I don't think it's entirely true, but just keep following. It's worth it. Stephen's mate does approach Andrew, and Andrew pays Stephen's mate the $4,500, presumably under the pretext that that money will go back to Andy. Once the money is paid, Stephen calls his mate, who apparently says that he's just going to keep the money for himself and not give it to Andy to who it is owed. Thus, Stephen, being the good friend that he is, claims that he began to give Andy a couple of $100s here and there to help him out. Here's the statement. I agreed to help Nahas by giving him money when I had spare. Over the next 3 months, I continually gave Nahas in approximately $300 amounts. During this period, Nahas continually told me he had no money and he owed people money. And it wasn't right when the male kept his $4,500 from Andrew. I'm sorry, but when did normal people involve such a large number of intermediaries when chasing a few $1,000s worth of debts? This story is just odd, but here's where it gets odder. Stephen begins receiving phone calls from a man that on his first police statement he refused to identify, figuring that it's the man that Andy Nahas owes $1,000 to. The first call is on the 19th of March. Here's an excerpt from Stephen's first police statement. About a month later, out of the blue, I got a phone call on my work phone. The number display on my phone said private number. I answered, and it was a male. He said, "How you going, Stephen?" I said to the male on the phone, "I'm fine. What is this regarding?" The male on the phone said, "It's about the money you owe Andy Nahas, because Andy owes me money." I said to the male on the phone, "It's between me and Andy. We've already worked it out amongst us." The male on the phone said, "Nah, you have to come and see me, because Andy owes me money and you owe him money, so now he has to pay and you have to pay." I thought this may have been male number 3 who Andy owed $1,000 to. I said to the male on the phone, "By chance, how much does he owe you?" The male on the phone said $10,000. I said to the male on the phone, "That's bullshit. What happens between me and Andy is between us. We're friends. What happens between you and Andy is between you and Andy." The male on the phone said, "I expect you to come and see me. Don't disrespect me." I hung up the phone, terminating the call. I did not recognize the voice of the caller. However, he did recognize the voice of the caller, as it's revealed in Stephen's second police statement. Not only did he recognize the voice of the caller, but the caller identified himself as a man that Stephen knew, Bandito's bikie Tony K. Needless to say, the recount of this call in the second statement that Stephen gave is a lot more interesting. I answered the phone and a male person said, "Yeah, Steve, it's Tony K with you, brother." I said, "Yeah, mate, how can I help you?" Tony said, "I need you to come and see me." I said, "What for?" Tony said, "It's got to do with Andy Nahas and some money." I said, "Mate, whatever got to do with me and Andy Nahas and money has to do with us. It has nothing to do with you." Tony said, Andy has been lying to me and he owes money and he hasn't told me the truth for a long time and I'm very upset with him. I'm going to speak with his brothers so I can get the money off them. I said, fair enough. I've got no money to give you. It has nothing to do with me. Tony said, I'm at my mother's house in Guildford. Come and see me. I said, what for? I have no reason to come and see you. I'm busy, mate. Tony said, I'm showing you respect, so you should show me respect and come and see me. I said, I'll see what I can do in the next few days. In this second statement, Stephen also claims that he'd seen Tony K around the Marylands area, had family connection to him, and also knew him from when he used to work security at the Pink Pepper Lounge in Parramatta, where he'd see him with a man that for legal reasons we'll call Charlie D. The reason as to why Stephen did not identify Tony on his first statement could be somewhat related to the last few lines of his second statement. I truly think that they would hurt or kill me and my family. They already hurt me so badly I thought I was going to die. And this is why I am truly fearful for my life and my family's. Yeah, we'll get back to that later. Back to where we were though, it's then claimed in the days following this phone call, Stephen received numerous calls from a private number, which he didn't answer as he believed them to be from Tony K. This was until around the 23rd of March of 2009 when the police and Stephen alleged that Tony K rang Stephen's personal mobile, a number which Stephen claims only his mother, father, brother-in-law, sister, and a couple of close friends including Andy Nahas possessed. Stephen's second statement reads as follows. I received a phone call on my personal phone. There was a number displayed on the screen, but I did not recognize the number. I answered the call. A male said, it's Tony, what's happening? How come you haven't come to see me? I recognized this voice to be the same voice of the male who called me the first time, identifying himself as Tony K. I said, mate, I don't have time for your shit. Tony said, where are you now? I will come and see you. I said, no mate, nup. Tony said, not even God is going to stop me doing what I'm going to do to you. I know where your parents live, and I know you have a dog. I'm going to stab it. I said, okay, mate, no worries. Are you finished? Tony said in Arabic, I'm going to f*** your God. I said, no worries, mate. I could hear a male voice in the background say, we're going to your parents' house. We'll see you there. I hung up the phone. About a week later, I went to visit my parents at the service station. I bumped into a friend who told me Tony K was in hospital. He had been in a car accident. Because I hadn't heard from Tony, I realised this must have been why. Then there's a rather large time gap between this and the next incident in the statement. It doesn't really detail any alarmed conversations Stephen might have had. I guess he could have just been relaxed about some bikey f***ing his God. According to the statements, the next event occurs on Thursday the 15th of April. Stephen goes to work at his friend's house at Rydalmere, and throughout the day he receives numerous calls from Andy Nahas. About 1:30 PM the same day, I saw a missed call on my personal mobile telephone from Andy Nahas. I called him back. Nahas answered and asked what time I finished work. I said, not sure, probably 3:30, 4 o'clock. Nahas said, okay, what time will you be able to come and see me? I said, I will ring you when I'm free. The call ended about 3:30 PM. The same day I received a call from Nahas. I answered. Nahas said, what do you reckon the absolute latest is that you'll be able to come and see me? I said, I'm not sure, mate. Nahas said, what you reckon about 7? I said, I don't. Probably earlier. The call ended. About 5:30 PM I received another call from Nahas. At this time I was at another mate's house. Nahas said, how long are you going to be? I am in Guildford. I need to see you. We need to sort the money out. I said, just after 6 o'clock, I'm busy. The call ended. About 6 PM, I received another call from Nahas. I answered. Nahas said, I'm at Red Rooster. Can you come see me? I said, mate, give me 10 minutes and I will be there. I left my mate's house and I drove to the Red Rooster at Guildford. This is around where the statement takes a violent and dramatic twist. Stephen borrows his mate's van, drives to Red Rooster, and, well, again, there's very little point in doing anything other than reading the second statement. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw Andy Nahas in his car. It is a silver-coloured Toyota Camry Sportivo. Nahas was in the front passenger seat, another male was in the driver's seat, there was another male in the back seat. I think they are uni friends of Nahas. I parked the van next to his Camry and spoke with him through the window. Nahas got out of the car and came to my window. Nahas said, look, what are you doing? I said, I have to go load the van. I need at least an hour and then I'll meet you. Nahas said, okay. At this time, a black Commodore drove into the car park. Nahas said, look, there's Sarge's car. The Commodore had very dark tinted windows and I could not see inside. It parked on an angle about 3 meters from the rear passenger side of my van. I turned my head to the left and I saw all 4 doors of the Commodore open. 4 males got out of each door and ran to my van. At this stage, I only recognized Tony K. He ran to the passenger side of my van. Tony is about 22 years old. He is Middle Eastern appearance and is skinny. He is very tall, about 6'2". He's about my height, but because he's slim, he looks really tall. He was clean shaven and looks really baby faced. He looks to me like a kid. He was wearing grey coloured 3/4 pants, white coloured Nike shoes, a dark coloured hat, either Nike or G-Star, and a grey and horizontal striped hoodie. The hood was on his head covering the hat. As he was running towards the car, he held the front of his jumper up and I could see a Glock. The Glock was black, but looked badly scratched. Tony pulled the Glock out of the front of his pants and I watched as he cocked the gun. This all happened in a matter of seconds. One of the males opened the passenger door. It would have opened about 30 centimeters. I leant over and pulled the door shut and locked it. I sped off. I drove out of the car park and turned left. I'm not sure what street I turned onto, but it is the same street the Guildford Club is on. I looked in my rear vision mirrors and I saw the males run back to the black Commodore. They sped out of the car park behind me. On this road, the black Commodore overtook me just as the round meets Marion Street. I tried to turn left, but the Commodore pulled in front of me and I could not continue driving without running into the car. Tony K got out of the rear passenger seat. He ran towards the van with his shirt up and I could again see the pistol. Tony ran toward the driver's side. I reversed backwards about 10 meters. I put the car back in first gear and drove back towards the roundabout. I drove straight through the roundabout and turned right at the Guildford Bowling Club. I drove all the way to Marylands Road. I again looked in my rear view mirror and rear vision mirror and I saw Andy Nahas's silver Camry speeding up behind me. I went to turn right onto Marylands Road. The silver Camry forced me onto the wrong side of the road and then they got jammed behind a median strip. I kept driving towards a roundabout. I turned left at that roundabout. Granville Park was on my right hand side. I then saw the silver Camry drive up again behind me. I continued driving over a bridge that goes over the railway tracks. There were cars lined up at the traffic lights. I drove around the cars and through the red light and turned left onto Pitt Street. The Camry was still chasing me. On Pitt Street, the Camry overtook me. As it did, I turned right into a one-way street, and the Camry had no choice but to keep going. At the end of the one-way street, I turned right into McFarlane Street and drove past Maryland's RTA. This car chase appears to be verified by the police, as in their statement it claims that CCTV footage from Maryland's railway station depicts a white van on the wrong side of the road, followed closely by a silver sedan. At this point, Stephen believes he's lost his pursuers, which include Andy Nahas, Tony K and a few other men, so he apparently drives the van to its owner's grandmother's house in Greystanes. When he gets out, there's no one home, so he leaves the keys in the letterbox and walks down the road. Now, poor Stephen has really bad luck because apparently as he got to a road just down from the house, Andy Nahas's silver Sportivo pulls up. Tony K, Andy Nahas, a bloke by the name of Olsen, and another male got out of the car. At this point in the statement, we get to the obligatory near-forensic description of what brand of clothes each of the men were wearing. Nike Air Maxes seems to be a favourite, but as interesting as scallywag attire might be, the next section of the statement is far better. I got into a verbal argument with Tony and Olsen. We were yelling at one another. I remember him saying it was no longer about the money, it was about principle, and I had made Tony look like a gronk. Olsen walked towards me and I shaped up and got ready to fight. Tony pulled the Glock out of the front of his pants and cocked it back. Tony said, "Give me your phones." I handed Tony my personal mobile telephone. Tony and Olsen then grabbed me and pushed me into the back seat of the car. I was sitting in the center of the back seat and Tony was sitting on one side and Olsen was on the other. They were yelling at Nahas saying, "Get f***ed. We will return the car when we feel like it." Got into the driver's seat and the other male got into the front passenger seat, drove off, and Nahas was left on the side of the road. One of them put a jumper over my head and forced me to lean down forward. I don't know which one it was. Whilst my head was down, I was repeatedly smashed in the face and head. I immediately felt severe pain in my head. The car drove for about 15 minutes. I was assaulted the whole time whilst the car was moving. I do not know who was assaulting me as my head was covered. I felt the car pull into the driveway. Moments later, the car stopped and I heard all 4 doors open. One of the males said, "Shut up, don't say a word, put your head down. Someone tried to pull me out of the right-hand side of the car. I hung onto the center console. I didn't want to get out. I eventually turned my body and tried to get out. I put my right leg out the door. When I put my left leg out, I felt someone grab it and twist my left foot inwards. This was extremely painful, and I thought my leg was going to break. As they were twisting my leg, I